This is a Patreon-supported video. These are my picks for 5 strange and or unusual customs or rituals of Essos. Of course, these are strange or unusual compared to our own modern society. I'm assuming most of us using YouTube for fun live in a first world country. As well, these would be considered strange or unusual to their Westerosi counterparts. Number 1. Qohor. And we're gonna kind of ignore that they have a god in their city, the Black Goat, that requires daily blood sacrifices. So Qohor swords, armor, and knives are considered superior to the finest castle-forged steel of Westeros. This location alone knows the secrets to working Valyrian steel. And this secret is so fiercely guarded that when a maester came from Westeros to their city to try to learn about their metalworking and write about it, he was publicly whipped 3 times before being cast out from the city. On his final attempt to learn about their metalworking, they cut off his hand, accusing him of stealing a Valyrian steel blade. But the maester claims that they didn't cut off his hand and throw him from the city a final time because he stole a blade, but because he discovered their secret. To produce a steel equal to that of the freehold, the Qohor smiths offer blood sacrifices, including that of slaves as young as infants. Number 2. Pentos. In Pentos, a prince is chosen from among the many noble families to rule for life. When a prince died, another one was chosen, typically from a different family. However, over the centuries, the power of the prince declined as magisters grew. The prince became more of a ceremonial thing in Pentos, while the Council of Magisters ruled. The prince presided over feasts and balls, and every year must deflower 2 maidens, the Maid of the Fields and the Maid of the Seas. This is a ritual to ensure continued prosperity for Pentos on both land and sea. At this point, you might be thinking, man, this sounds like an awesome job. I don't have a lot of responsibilities, I preside over these feasts, and I get to bang 2 virgins per year? What could possibly go wrong? A lot. A lot could go wrong. So here's the catch. If a famine occurs in Pentos, or Pentos loses a battle, they will then sacrifice the prince by slitting his throat to appease the gods. They will then pick a new prince, and if the famine continues or another battle is lost, they will then slit his throat and just keep going down the line. So then you want to ask the question, well, how many princes have they killed in a short amount of time? Well, 91 years ago, Pentos and Braavos were fighting quite a bit, and the war wasn't going too well for Pentos. In the space of a single year, 4 princes were sacrificed. Because of the occupational hazard of being a prince in Pentos, there have been some that have either outright refused to become the prince, or when they've been selected or knew they were going to be selected, they've fled the city and never returned. Number 3. Volantis. In Volantis, slaves' faces are tattooed to mark them for their work. These tattoos mark them for life to show their status and sometimes are disfiguring. Even if they are freed, the tattoos force them to carry the burden of their past. Slaves that collect the dung of horses and elephants are marked with flies on their faces. The fools and jesters wear motley. The slave soldiers' faces bear green tiger stripes which show their rank. Prostitutes have a single tear beneath their right eye. And the drivers of carts are marked with wheels. And there are many, many other styles of tattoos that basically disfigure a lot of these slaves' faces and make it that they have to carry the shame of being a slave for the rest of their lives, even if they become free. Number 4. Kyah Naya, Samariana, and Baya Sabad all contain woman mountain warriors. They are the daughters of the great fathers who rule these cities. While girls learn to ride and climb, use bows, spears, knives, and slings from childhood, the boys aren't so lucky. 99 out of every 100 sons of the great fathers are gilded and forced to live out the rest of their lives as eunuchs, serving their city in a variety of roles, such as cooks or craftsmen, scribes, healers, etc. Only the males considered the most handsome, promising, and strong are allowed to breed. Super shitty. And number 5. North of Yi are the mounted warriors called the Jogas Nahai. They are a nomadic people who live their lives in yurts, tents, and saddles. They are described as squat, bow-legged, with large heads and small faces. Oh, and they have pointed skulls. This is from their custom of binding the heads of newborns during their first 2 years of life. While the Dothraki warriors pride themselves on their braids, the men of this culture shave their heads but for a single strip of hair down the center, while their women go wholly bald and even scrape hair from their woman parts. So here's a little side note about these people. They have two main leaders. So they have the Jat, which is the war chief and more of the masculine energy, you could say, and he deals with all things that involve war, raids, battle, and all that. Then their other leader is the Moonsinger and is more of their feminine energy, and this person deals with things involving healing, being a priestess, judging, and basically presiding over all life that doesn't involve wars and raids. But there is a catch to this. A male can be a Moonsinger. That is perfectly fine. He can be the feminine energy, feminine leader of their people. But if he decides to become a Moonsinger, from then on out, he has to dress and act like a woman for the rest of his days. And on the other side, if a female decides that she wants to become the war chief, that is perfectly fine. But from then on out, she has to dress like a man and act like a man for all her days. So those were my picks for 5 crazy and or unusual rituals or customs of Essos. You can write which one was your favorite in the comment section below, or if you have one I didn't list, then you can put it down there because there's a lot more screwed up stuff in Essos. Make sure you give this video a thumbs up and subscribe and come back for more Game of Thrones videos, Star Wars videos, comic videos, and big thank you to everyone that supports me on Patreon. Your throat will be slit in order to appease the gods via a sacrifice. Doesn't sound so great now anyways. I mean, risk and reward, if you're really into banging 2 virgins per year, maybe you're willing to take that risk. I don't know.